international. Baltimore scored. Shit.
Oh, yeah.
But in the exit, stupid 10. I don't know how I feel about that rule.
The runner starting on second?
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically just to keep the games shorter, right?
Shorten the game to get players out faster, not to wear out pitchers because like they're not going to be stretched out properly and shit like that. No minor leagues to call guys up.
I mean, it's kind of. Wait, are they keeping this rule for the foreseeable future, or is this just a COVID thing?
I don't know. I guess it will depend.
I have no idea.
I think it depends on how the season will look next year.
I mean, good time to try it, I guess. But this is the equivalent of it's kind of like starting at the 20-yard line for overtime in football. So, I mean, I don't hate it. Especially it can be taxing on a team if you go 17, 18 innings.
It's a good idea for this year.
My thing is that why can't you have a tie game? I just don't understand this North American thing about not having a tie.
It's that need for closure.
Yeah, it's just I just don't get it. Like, just call it a tie. What's the big deal? Like, why do you have to have a result? It is a result. I mean,
I remember there was a year in the NHL where I think the Panthers had 25 or 30 ties. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they made the playoffs that year, but they were just reeling off points with ties.
Yeah. Back in the day when hockey used to have ties.
It was probably a couple years before they put in the whole it might have been before the shootout, or it might have been way before it, but you could guarantee that the Panthers were tying.
Hockey used to have ties, but then what they started to do to get teams to play less conservatively in overtime was that they'd guarantee you the point and you play for the extra points. You play with nothing to lose. Then after the long lockout, they ended up the season they missed. They ended up bringing in shootout.
But I didn't even get that either. What's the point of giving the extra point to begin with to the team for what? For making it to overtime?
Well, they wanted because what happened was going on was that teams, they didn't want to walk away with no points for going to overtime. So every team started playing conservatively and wouldn't try to score. So the league wanted to increase scoring and increase pace of play and wanted teams to try to win rather than try not to lose. So they came up with the rule that you get the point guaranteed, so you're playing for the bonus point.
Yeah, I get it, but it's just, so are you going to give me a point for going into the third period with a tie?
For overtime.
No, but I'm just saying, as a stupid example, give me a point for going into the third period tied. It's just dumb. I remember back, I think it was 15 years ago, 20 years ago maybe, when, do you remember the Continental Basketball Association, the CBA?
Yeah.
No.
So this was before D-League or anything. There was the CBA, and so what they tried to do was they tried to do interesting things within the game to keep the game interesting and to keep I don't know if it was fans involved or to keep from games getting out of hand. So basically there was the winner who would get, I believe, I don't know how many points. I think they allotted a certain amount of points for the winner of the game. But then what they would also do is give points for the winner of either it was the quarter or the half.
Oh, that's weird.
It was stupid. I think the CBA was known for being a gimmicky league. So that falls right within it. That was their shtick.
I mean, hockey's at least you got to play 3 periods first.
Exactly.
So it's not like you'll get a point for getting through.
So should we get? I recorded this, by the way. I might use this for something. So let's. Azam, are you prepared for your intro?
I like sports. I could do something in sports. Maybe I could be like an announcer, like a color man.
Well, they tend to give those jobs to ex-ball players and people that are, in broadcasting.
Well, that's really not fair.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Box and One. The crew is back and today we have our full roster with those back from the injured list. We're going to talk a lot of basketball tonight, primarily previewing the Raptors versus the Celtics. I'm Azam Faruqi.
Hey, I'm Ronald Salgado.
And I'm Pramit Bose, back from the injured list.
I don't know. I think our team may have been better without Pramit, but I think we'll see after we get the results from this episode.
What am I, like Rudy Gay here?
You might be. You
got traded and the team goes off on a. You get traded so the team can tank, and instead they go on a 7-year run.
Yeah, except in our case, we end up getting listeners in Germany, the UK, and Ireland. And thank you for those that are listening abroad. Not something that we expected, but we really appreciate it.
And
we are a global phenomenon.
I know, so just for the record.
Oh, well, we're trending in Germany, we're trending in Ireland. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, like you said, global phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. So the series starts tomorrow, Raptors versus Celtics. Two really good teams, and we've talked a lot about them.
Actually, it looks like the series is starting Sunday. If you want to start.
Oh, is it? Okay.
What it's hold on. I saw earlier that they're going to push it for Sunday. Let me
just. It's Sunday at 1 p.m.
Sunday at 1. Yeah. Let's start.
Yeah.
No, awesome. So the series starts Sunday. Two really good teams. We've talked a lot about them. Two really talented coaches, well-rounded teams. And isn't this the first time they're meeting in a playoff series?
Yep. First time ever. Yeah. It's great when you think about it, because both these...
It's a little crazy, right?
They've been on long parallel playoff runs for the past 6 years. The Raptors obviously winning last year's title. And each of the last 4 years, one of the two teams had been in the conference finals. Raptors in 16 and, of course, 19, and the Celtics in 17 and 18. So it's amazing that they haven't crossed paths yet.
Yeah,
and I think...
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. In our case, I think it was actually LeBron that always ended up getting in our way. And yeah, finally, like, things worked out. I'm super excited to see what happens. It's going to be a tight series, and I don't know how you guys have it scored, but I'm not 100% confident with my pick, but I'll go with it, and hopefully it works out.
So let's start with that. What's your pick, Ron?
So I want to say that I was really back and forth on this. I don't want to sound like a homer, but I'm going to go the homer way. I'm going to go Raptors in 6. But if you asked me earlier this week, I was actually leaning towards Boston, and a big part of that was the status of Lowry. Even if he I don't think the injury is all that bad, but even just missing a couple games and the possibility of getting down 2 games against such a good team really scared me. So I wasn't 100% sure that we were going to be able to pull this off, or if we'll be able to pull this off. But with Lowry in there, I'm a lot more confident in how our lineup stacks up against the Celtics.
Yep. I too have the Raptors in 6. Again, not to sound like a homer. We'll break this down further, but I look at the overall depth of the roster. I'll give the Celtics the edge in their starting 5. However, I do like the Raptors bench a lot better. I like the Raptors overall team defense a lot more, although Celtics are better offensively. And when it comes to coach, it's really neck and neck. Both Nurse and Brad Stevens are considered elite coaches. I'd give the edge to Nurse right now. And I think that Nurse has gotten, just because he's managed to build a really deep bench when going into the season, one of the challenges with the Raptors was the unknown from the bench. They have so many different options. And while, again, teams don't go super deep in playoff runs, usually no more than 8, maybe 9, depending on a matchup, I think that will help push them over the edge.
Awesome. Do you have a pick? Do you have a prediction?
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking it's really hard. Like Pramit, you said, Boston's probably a better offensive team, better starting 5. Raptors better defensively. I think series might go 7 games. I want to say Raptors just because I want them to win. And the other reason being that, okay, so again, we know the two really talented coaches. We know both can make adjustments on the fly. I would give Nurse a bit of an edge because we've seen him succeed with it, and even in like this season without Kawhi and like having those like true top guys. I think from a talent perspective, you may have a slightly more talented roster with the Celtics, and the fact that Nurse still gets a little bit more out of his lineup with a deeper bench, I would probably, which is probably the reason why I'm going to go with Raptors in 7.
So if we look at the regular season series, Boston took 3 games. We only took 1 game. And I mean, in the most recent game, we didn't look good. The Raptors they looked. I don't know if you guys agree, but they looked really lifeless in it, almost. And I know it wasn't a nothing game, but considering that the Raptors had already come out and done some work in the first couple of bubble games, I don't know if there was less to play for, but I don't know if as much was on the line. And I think Nick Nurse said this in a recent Zoom one of the Zoom interviews where. They kick their butts basically. So I'm a little bit concerned that that's the most recent example of these two teams meeting. But I mean, overall, I think if we're in a 7-game series and you get Nick Nurse being able to scheme against them defensively, and if we do what we need to do, I'm confident that top to bottom, I think the Celtics are definitely a lot more top heavy. They're top 3 are probably better than our top 3. But when we look at, like you said, Primate, an 8-man, 9-man rotation, I have a lot more confidence in what we have than what the Celtics are able. Like if you're bringing Wanamaker off the bench, I prefer what we have coming off the bench to that.
And even with Lowry out, I mean, you can feel like, okay, so I think Lowry has probably gotten the most assignment against Dayton this season. But even if he's out, I think you still have enough guys, Ananobi, or who can probably shut him down. So, I mean, there's that defensive depth as well.
Oh yeah, I mean Ananobi can guard at any position, and
Yep.
he could slow down and really whoever they want to put him on, or if that's an advantage defensively. What makes the Raptors so good is that they have so many guys. Well, not so many guys, but a lot of guys that can guard multiple positions. Like OG can guard any position. Pascal can guard any position. Gasol, while you don't want him guarding perimeter players, he can do so and not look terrible doing it. He could hold his own. Lowry, Fred, don't even discount guys like Serge or even like Terrence Davis off the bench are very good defenders. So really, other than Matt Thomas, whose role is to be a spot-up shooter and provide floor spacing, they have all of their players are at least average, if not above average, defensive players.
Yeah, and something that I also want to mention, since I was going back to what happened in the regular season, if you look at the game that we won, we didn't have Siakam. We got a surprise game from McCall, which is, I mean, I don't think we're going to bank on that. We managed to hold Tatum to 12 points. And also in the Christmas Day game, which was just like same thing as the last game against them in the bubble. Like we looked lifeless, but we also didn't have Siakam. We didn't have Gasol. And we didn't have Powell, who are 3 massive parts of our lineup. So you take away 3 guys who are within our top 8. You know, that really changes the rotations and what we can do offensively and defensively. And also, since we haven't mentioned this yet, the Celtics are going to be without Gordon Hayward. That's a massive loss. Even so, if had we not had Lowry in this game, you trade one for the other. I mean, I think we would be losing more with Lowry. But if he is playing, and he is, even at 70%, even at 80%, I think we definitely come out on top of that trade-off.
Yep. And I think just to add, looking at the games the teams have played this season, the first game was game 2 of the season. It was a close game into the fourth quarter. Boston won. The second game was Christmas Day when the Raptors were number one, they had a lot of guys injured, and number two, that they'd been on a very, very tight schedule. It was a tough schedule. A few days earlier, they had played that comeback against Dallas, where they came back from 30 points, and then they had to go into overtime the next night again in Indy. So by the time Christmas came around, they were a little worn down, and it showed. Raptors won that Saturday night game in Boston. They had that back-to-back. And then this past few weeks back, there was the Celtics blowout. I don't really take much from any of the games. I mean, I think we've noticed more than in the NBA, more than any other league, the regular season just doesn't mean as much as in other sports. I mean, last year, Raptors beat Milwaukee, came back down 2-0 to beat them 4 straight after losing the season series 3-1. I think it's a playoff series becomes a series of adjustments, exposing weaknesses. Both teams you don't have to deal with tough schedules. They're both on the same schedule. There's no travel this time around. And even if there were travel, they're on the same travel schedule. So a lot of factors that come into regular season results are taken out of the equation in the playoffs.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And one thing I want to ask is, we played the Nets. Boston played a shorthanded Sixers team. Do you guys take anything from what either team was able to do in the previous round?
I don't know, except the fact that a couple of guys who probably didn't have a really good series might, I don't know if it's cause of concern or anything. But other than that, I really don't know. I mean, Philly was probably a slightly tougher assignment than the Nets, but without Simmons, it's a pretty different game altogether, right, for them as well. So I don't know what to make of it.
I will just say the Raptors had some. If there's one area of weakness on this team, it's that they do have stretches where they run cold offensively. And I think the Brooklyn series, while this shouldn't be the litmus test again, they did not have their top 3-4 players, or top 3 players for sure. The Raptors did manage to have some really, really strong offensive showings. I mean, 100 bench points in Game 4, although you don't want to take too much from that, because I'm sure once Brooklyn realized that the game was out of reach, they were ready to catch their flight out of the bubble. But it was good to see some guy see some offensive flow, some offensive mojo, figuring things out. Like, you don't expect them to score 150 points, 134 points a night, but heck, if you can at least against a team like Boston hit that 110 mark with their defense, and seeing Norm Powell get hot and lead the playoffs actually in plus minus so far, that's a very positive sign. Obviously, Siakam has still been a little bit inconsistent with his offense. He had a couple of good games, lacked some efficiency at times, and it'll be even harder for him in this series against a much better Boston team. So if I were to worry about something, it would be that. Lowry, not official yet that he's playing. I'm going with the assumption that he is, and he's had a few extra days. However, even if he does play, ankle injuries, obviously he's going to be going up against Kemba Walker. It's hard to contain that guy as it is. Imagine trying to guard him on a wonky ankle. So it's not in the bag. I'm not going to approach this series like the way I did the last one, where I declared a sweep and it wouldn't even be close. This will be close, and there are going to be a lot of challenges.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's close, even if the Raptors lose, it's not something that it wouldn't be a shocking result either way, no matter which team goes through.
Yeah, no, not at all. And this is, I mean, in both cases, this is definitely different from the last series that they played. Kemba Walker, even after they won against Philly, his quote was, "I don't know if it's much to celebrate. Honestly, we didn't do much yet." And I'm sure the Raptors are thinking the same thing. Even if the Raptors pulled off a win in this series, I'm thinking they're not going to celebrate either. They have one goal in mind. That's an NBA championship, to repeat as champions. So I know Nurse definitely is going to have them prepared, and they're not going to be excited over a win against the Nets.
Now, just to interject, slightly off topic, Randall Grichuk hit a 2-run home run, so the Blue Jays win.
Well, I got one
Man.
prediction right last episode, and one prediction I had said the Jays are not going to make the playoffs. They now have the one of the two wild cards, aka the 8th seed. I've never thought I'd say an 8th seed in baseball, but they went on that 6-game winning streak right after I declared them to be not going to the playoffs, and now they've played pretty well since then. They split the series against Tampa, won 6 in a row prior, so that takes you to 8-2, 9-3 when you factor in the split for Boston, and now 10-3 since. So, my bad.
Well, now they have a 67% chance of making the playoffs according to Fangraphs, and 1.2% chance of winning the World Series. That's actually not bad.
1.2%, huh? I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. I'll take it.
The first round they would play, as it stands now, the Athletics, a 3-game series. I mean, a 3-game playoff, you never know.
Playoffs a crapshoot, man.
It's a crapshoot, and
especially the short of the series. Yeah,
like
you run into a hot pitcher, you're done.
Oh yeah, you run into or one of Oakland's players could have a cold and not play well. So,
but without Drury in there, I don't like our chances. The unfortunate news of him being sent.
I know
sent
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm it's too bad. One of the greatest withheld players of all time. So back to our topic. So, guys, what do you think is the big matchup here? Are we talking about Siakam, Tatum, or is there anything else you guys think is going to be that the deciding factor here?
I want to see OG in a playoff series against an elite wing guy like Tatum or even Brown. See what he can do. Really, this year he really developed into a defensive player. He was top 10 in the league in defensive win shares this year, which is a huge improvement on his D. And he's already very good before. Even in his rookie year, he did very well for a rookie. So I want to see him, because he missed last year's run, I want to see him shut down another team's elite wing player or score. I want to see him match up in a playoff series and see how he goes.
So for me, it's matchup wise, it's definitely our bigs against the Boston bigs. So you're looking at Tice, Cantor, and I mean that's pretty much it. So I think it's very important that Ibaka have a huge series. And one thing that I want to see is Marc Gasol do a little bit more. He was at 7.5 points, or actually, I think that's his regular season stats. I think I'm looking at his regular season stats. It might have even been lower than that for the postseason. Gasol needs to do a lot more, especially if we're going to be able to rely on him defensively, just for some of the pick and rolls that the Celtics like to run. So that's if we can win that, I think we make our lives a whole lot easier. And a big thing is definitely just in general what OG Anunoby is able to give us. He hasn't done much in the playoffs. I think since that one game against the Lakers where we got all excited and we talked about it on our podcast, I think he's been a little bit disappointing, and I think there needs to be a lot more from OG. Defensively, definitely. I mean, he's done a job defensively, but I want to see more from him offensively, because if we're going to match up with the big three from Boston, I think we're going to need a little bit more from the bottom end guys.
Yeah, and I think big men is probably where Toronto has a much clearer advantage with Ibaka and Gasol, right? I mean, you still want Gasol to be a little bit better than what he was against the Nets. I think he shot like under 40% or something. So you would probably want him to step up a little bit. But I think that could be an interesting matchup as well, because I don't think Kanter is up there defensively. And I think if you're talking about starting 5 centers, big men is probably one where Raptors may have a clear advantage.
Yeah, and I just checked Gasol's postseason stats: 6.3 points, shooting 38% from the field. One of the big things that I've been disappointed in is those chances that he gets at the 3 point line. He looks really hesitant, and I think last year what really helped us was the fact that he hit some of those shots in the playoffs.
Hmm. Yeah, so you can't shoot 38% if
We need,
against a good team.
yeah, we need more. But
Not
like,
against, yeah,
he still brings it on D. He's still, I even with that the thing. What I don't want to be the overly optimistic fanboy here, but even he doesn't need to score to have such an impact on the game because the defense is
No
there.
defense, and he moves the ball around really well as well. So I mean, he does have value, right? So
Oh, a lot of value. And even that's the thing about this Raptor team that is really impressive is that we don't. I mean, when back in the days of DeMar DeRozan, if he didn't score 25 points in a playoff game, he didn't. It was a bad game for him because he didn't do anything else well enough to justify him getting the minutes that he did. He needed to score 25 in a playoff game. But with this team, it doesn't really matter. And I guess it could come back to bite them in the ass against the more elite teams, not having that big time scorer who can take over a game. But all these guys can contribute without scoring in different ways. And that's why they're such a good defensive team. That's why they're able to win no matter if they don't have that. Even if certain guys have bad scoring nights, you don't really notice because Pascal could shoot 38% from the field and go 2 for 9 from the three, and we'll still win because of the defense and everybody else chipping in. So we don't. The good thing about the team is that we don't really need to say one or two guys need to step up. You'd like to get obviously you want to get more, but even if everybody stays at their current level or a little bit better, they are still in good shape.
yeah. But I do really believe that without a strong series from Pascal, we're not winning this. I need to see Pascal do a lot more. Last series was a little bit better than he's been in the bubble, but I want to see him take that next step and really turn into somebody that the Raptors can rely on a little bit more. I don't want to see him taking those 3 pointers above the break. I don't want to see him, driving into three guys, taking an off balance fade. I want to see Pascal really do a little bit more and be smarter with the shots that he takes. And ultimately, in this series, what it's going to come down to, anyways, is just our ability to get out in transition. And what that means is going to be creating turnovers. Nick Nurse said it in his Zoom conference. We need to, if we're, his exact quote was, if we're going to play all this darn defense, we better get something out of it on the other end. And in any series that they're going to play, it couldn't be truer in this series because the Celtics are really good at taking care of the ball. And if we're not able to get out in transition, our offense struggles a lot more when we have to play against a set defense. And Pascal really benefits from being able to get out and run.
Yep. He needs to run, get to the rim, layups, dunks. Interesting stat for Pascal, and it wasn't a very efficient scoring series for him. A couple of interesting stats was that he did average 4.8 assists a game, which is a very good number for him in 33 and a half minutes, and 7.8 rebounds. So, yep, again, definitely. I mean, if he's not scoring as efficiently as we'd like, however, he's still contributing in other ways. I like the 4.8 assists, close to 5 assists a game, meaning that if teams are doubling him, he is making the right pass and getting the ball to the right guy, and so to get the right shot, and that's a good sign. He hasn't been efficient. He's not always forcing bad shots like we used to at times quite a bit. See DeRozan try to do back in the days with during those playoff runs.
Yeah, and that was one of the big issues that Embiid had against Boston was that I think he struggled against those doubles and he wasn't able to find that pass. Pascal has definitely gotten a lot better at that. And as long as he doesn't get confused by what they're throwing at him, I think he should have a good series. I do like the matchup, and another important factor to consider, and this is a little bit of what worries me, is that throughout the season, Tatum kind of struggled against us. He was only shooting 37%, 16.5 points. In the loss, he had 12 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. Is it a product of our defense? Which, yeah, I think that's probably it. But if he can find it in the series, I'm a little bit worried. But at the same time, I don't know that he is going to find it. I trust our defense that much.
Tatum says the Raptors are the best defensive team in the league. He said that on a podcast during the suspension. He called them the best defensive team in the way that they were able to stop him. So
he does come on podcasts. Let's give his agent a call.
Jason Tatum, come on the show.
Exactly. You'll have some followers in Germany and Ireland that way.
Yeah, well, in a week and a half, you should have time.
So let's talk about this a little bit more, guys. So I know we've chatted a little bit, and we've seen some articles about it. Siakam versus Tatum. How do you guys rank the two players? Who would you rather have if you were starting your own team?
Ooh, I've done. Private, have you decided on this yet? Because I
made the decision, and I changed my mind a couple times, but I have made the decision. And I would say Tatum is the better player.
I'm 100%. Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. Who wants to go first for the reasons why?
I just think offensively he's a little bit more talented. Defense is probably Siakam might be a little bit better, but it's a lot closer than I thought when I actually saw the numbers.
Yeah, I don't think that Pascal has the clear advantage, and I think we all thought that defensively that he had the clear advantage. It's definitely not clear. I mean, even offensively, I think if you look at the numbers, they're fairly similar. But when I watch some video, you just look at what Tatum's able to do on the pick and roll, and how he's able to just maneuver in the lane. And I think Pascal is just a little bit more limited. Pascal does great on the break. He's able to get out and run. Like, his athleticism is beyond belief when he's running, and he's, especially compared to other big men. But Tatum, when you get in a half court set, I trust him a lot more with the ball than I would giving Pascal the ball.
Yeah, and like I was looking at defensive box plus minus, right? I mean, like it's 0.5 and 0.6 between the two guys. So I don't know, but Tatum is offensively has a much clearer advantage.
Yeah, so here's where I stand. I did a deep dive into some of the numbers, and some of the stats are so close. I mean, usage rate were
identical.
Tatum's like 28, Siakam's 27.8, so really close. Plus minus, I had Tatum 7.7, Siakam 6.6. Defensive win shares, it's almost negligible. 3.62 Siakam, 3.68 Tatum. However, why even with the win share stat, I give Siakam the slight edge on D. Siakam contests 10.3 shots a game, just say Tatum's 6.8. And I think that Siakam is just bigger, longer, and more menacing. So if you're going one-on-one with him and he's guarding you, it's a much more of a challenge to go at him on defense because of he has that wingspan and the height and just that sort of menacing presence on D. But I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Tatum is right there. Even though I say Tatum, and he's a much more efficient scorer for sure, efficient shooter, he can create his own shot. Siakam still needs to have somebody get the ball to him at times. He has never actually been the guy offensively ever at any level. So this is his first year where he's really more of a focal point offensive player, where Tatum, from his rookie year, he had that long playoff run where they went to conference finals, game 7 against LeBron's Cavs, where he played big minutes and got a lot of looks as one of the primary offensive options. This is Siakam's first go around at it, so I understand why he's not as efficient. He's learning some lessons that Tatum has likely learned over the first couple of years. And the growth rate, Siakam is still growing at a much faster rate, even though growth being like his overall performance and his numbers, even though he is a few years older, as Tatum came out as a freshman, and Siakam was looking at his numbers, at his age, he spent 2 years at New Mexico. So he's a little bit older when he came into the league. So Tatum now, but I wouldn't rule out Siakam potentially passing him just because of his trajectory.
Well, the one thing, and you just mentioned it, it's actually a 4-year difference in age, and that really is what sets them apart for me. It's that Siakam, I think, is 27, if I'm not mistaken.
94 born.
Yeah, so I think that difference in 4 years. So if you look at Tatum's trajectory since he came into the league, there were 2 years where he was around similar stats, and then he made a big jump this year. Siakam's definitely been a lot more steady, and I like that from Siakam. I also like the fact that Siakam performed last year in the playoffs, and he has a championship where, Tatum, he hasn't really necessarily done it for me in the playoffs, but the 4-year difference is huge, and I don't think that can be overlooked, especially like the way I'm looking at this question is, who am I building a team with? Who am I looking at for the long term? 100% it's Tatum.
Yep. Definitely. But that's, even though there's an age gap. Tatum is 98 born, so that would make him 22.
I mean, 4 years is a big difference.
4 years is a big difference. So on the longevity alone, you go, when in doubt, go with the younger player. But Pascal's been on some ridiculous growth trajectory, going from averaging 3 points a game to 22, 23 points a game by his fourth year is quite something. So I still believe there's a one higher level Siakam can take his game to become a much more efficient and better offensive player. I think that's still in him, and I think he will get to that. And if he does get to that, that could change the result. That could change things a little. That will change our result, our thoughts. But as of right now, Tatum.
Yeah, what's really missing for Pascal right now is the Raptors' offense isn't as complex and developed as what the Celtics' offense is. We're definitely a lot more dependent on our defense as a team and getting points off that defense in transition. So if you look at some of the video, Siakam doesn't necessarily get the ball in the same types of positions and with the same ability to do some of the things that they let Tatum do on offense. Also, some of the offensive weapons, we mentioned Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker. Playing with those guys, I think definitely helps him and opens things up for him a little bit more than it does Siakam, who's, he's still a big man playing, not necessarily in the lane, but I think he just has less chance to create offensively than Tatum would in the Celtics offense.
All right. So once again, the series starts Sunday at 1 p.m. We'll probably come back and talk a little bit more about it in one of our episodes. Hopefully the series goes long enough that it gives us a couple of opportunities to talk a little bit more in depth. Let's move on. The Toronto Blue Jays, as we mentioned earlier, they won against Baltimore. What was the final score?
Final score was 5-4.
5-4, okay. So they're sitting in a playoff spot right now. They've been playing much better baseball off late. Offense is picking up. Vlad is playing really well. What do you guys think? What are the chances?
Well, better than I thought they were 2 weeks ago when I announced that they were not going to make the playoffs and it was just going to be a developmental year. And given that they have a wild card spot with a very limited number of games to go, pretty good chances, no guarantee, but yeah, definitely they might as well, they can go for it. I think they have a good chance, and given the playoff formatting, you never know how deep they can go.
I mean, I think my response when we were talking about if they should make an attempt at the playoffs was, what's the point? I mean, it's definitely worked out for them, but I still don't think they should do anything crazy just for the playoffs, and I don't think they will. But we just need to keep in perspective that we're not winning the World Series. So any moves that we make, some cheap rentals are fine. Somebody that we're going to have around for a few years, I'm okay with doing that. But I don't want to mortgage the future for any reason. Just to maybe make a little bit of a deeper run into the playoffs. It makes no sense. So the move that they made recently with Taiwan Walker. Those level moves, I think are what they should be doing. Just something so they get some of these younger players some playoff experience.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, if there's an opportunity to upgrade significantly, I wouldn't mind doing that. I mean, if you look at it, they're actually not a bad team this year. Overall, the offense has been pretty decent. I was looking at their weighted runs created plus, and as a team, I think they're in the top 10 in baseball. So they're pretty decent. They're around that. They haven't scored a ton of runs relative to that, but I think that could also a lot has to do with luck as well. They're not striking out a lot as they did in the past. I think they're in the lowest, I think they're ninth lowest in the league right now in strikeouts. The middle of the pack in walks. The BABIP is low, and I was curious: is it because they're hitting a lot of ground balls? But that is not the case. So I wonder there's some luck factor in there as well. That it's a slightly even better offense than what we've come to see. Because if you look at the WRC plus, that really doesn't jive in with the results, like in terms of runs scored and things like that. So there may be an extra gear in this team right now.
Yeah, the offense is being got since the last time we talked about this. The offense during that winning streak and beyond just got really, really hot. They still aren't a great on base team. I mean, they still have a team 318 on base percentage, which is 22nd out of 30 teams. So their offense, true to form, like many other Jays teams in the recent past, have been dependent on the home run. They are fourth in MLB with 51 home runs this year. Defensively, they're definitely a better team than they were last season and last few years, really. I think you got some younger players who are more mobile, and as they learn, they learn better positioning and they make smarter plays. There were some issues early in the year of some boneheaded plays on defense and on the bases, but a lot of that has seemed to be cleaned up. Pitching, I mean, the bullpen has been fantastic, really, really good. The starting rotation, Ryu's been good. I still think Roark and Anderson, they haven't been great. Anderson's a little bit behind coming back from injury, but I think both can be fine. They definitely need to get some more innings for sure. Like their guys need to start going 6 innings minimum, or they're going to blow their pen out this month. I like the Taiwan Walker deal for sure. In terms of it's so weird this deadline. I mean, here's one thing. Everybody's saying they didn't pay a lot of money for. I mean, the acquisition cost for Taiwan Walker wasn't that high, but the reason why it's a player to be named later is because teams can't trade players that aren't in that 60-man pool. So it could still be a decent prospect, but not on the 60-man.
Mm-hmm,
so
exactly.
We don't know. The acquisition cost may end up being a decent prospect, just not in the 60-man. So we don't know what it actually was yet. So with rentals, I mean, I would cheap rentals, like an extra bullpen arm, a back end rotation guy, maybe someone who could play third base or utility hitter player that can hit a little more. They still have some offensive holes. I mean, Guerrero's a little better, still has his challenges, but you want to keep playing him. But even somebody like a Joe Panic, who has been getting a lot of playing time with the Bichette injury in the infield, has not hit. Travis Shaw has not hit. So maybe someone who could play shortstop or third base and be serviceable offensively but not where the acquisition cost isn't high. I mean, we don't know. The problem is we may not know what the rentals are for the costs are for a lot of the trades that they make. But I would say either do those little stopgap deals just to improve the foundation of the team a little more, or if teams are open to having that discussion, go for the big fish that's going to be around a few years. It's like Clevenger. If Cleveland wants him out after his violation of COVID rules, I'll take that.
So here's the thing. I think for the most part, I agree, and that's probably what Jays must have thought as well, that they can potentially add another bat. But I think with the number of injuries they've had, I think they've had to shift focus and probably fill the rotation a little bit. Hence, going after Taiwan Walker, I wouldn't be surprised if I see another arm in rotation. And in all honesty, Anderson and Roark have been what you would expect them from, be like two back end starters who might need an opener every now and then and may not go beyond 4 or 5 innings. So I think in a season like this, I think they are what we expected them to, at least in my case. I really didn't expect anything more than that. What I really wanted to see was the young guys taking a step forward, right? And I mean, we've talked a lot, but Biggio has seen. It seems like he's having a really good year again. The sample size for this year is going to be so small, so you don't know how meaningful anything is going to be. But you go by what you have right now, and I mean, his weighted runs created is at 149 for the year. He's like his on base is 397. He's hitting 275. There's not a whole lot wrong with him at this point. Like 6 home runs, 15% walks, 19% strikeouts, which is I think around league average if I'm not mistaken. So it's not that, like, these guys are starting to make a lot more contact, and Teoscar is having a really good year. Like if you look at the 5-6 main hitters that you would have expected going into this year, they're all above league average right now. So there's definitely been a step forward, in my opinion. And maybe adding like even rentals would probably do the job this year, unless obviously,
Yes,
like
yeah,
you said, the big fish
even
is
get
available.
because we don't know how long Bichette's going to be out.
So he apparently started baseball activities. He was supposed to start this weekend, but he started yesterday. He's still not running or taking any ground balls, but I think he hit off a tee yesterday. So
One thing I wouldn't mind seeing, and I know you guys are, I think you guys are both okay with the young catchers, but I wouldn't mind seeing uh, a catcher that can hit a little bit or at least get on base. Um, somebody to just give us a little bit more offense. And one of the names that I was looking at is Jason Castro from the Angels. Light hitting, but he gets on base a decent amount. He's only had like 49 at bats this year, and hitting only 204, but 320 on base. Just something to get your offense going a little bit more at the bottom of the lineup. Give a base runner for your top of the lineup to move around a little bit. And he's also known as a good a good framer of pitches, so he can steal you some strikes at least too. And I'm always one of those guys that just likes having a veteran catcher there just in case.
I think I would agree with you in normal years. The challenge is that if you acquire a veteran catcher, you're sending one of the young guys down. And what are they going to play, right? Like, you need these guys to have some time behind the plate to develop. And that's the challenge, I think. I mean, Jansen's on base isn't terrible. It's like 312 right now. McGuire is struggling massively, but he's only had 34 plate appearances. So it would be nice to see an upgrade, but the challenge is if you send them down, what do you do with them, right? Like, it's almost a lost year for them. And that's why sometimes I feel that because of the fact that they're not getting enough playing time for their prospects this year, especially the ones who you would have expected to come in 2021 or 2022, contribute in some way. Is it even worth bringing them up for some part of the year and have them get those at bats rather than, like, it was terrible watching Brandon Drury playing shortstop. I'd rather have Groshans come up and struggle, because at least you know that he would see where he's at and you're giving him some at bats, which might be more useful than giving it to Brandon Drury, in all honesty. So I even think that, if you can get a rental, better than having Joe Panic or Drury, thankfully, mercifully got option today. But, rather than having those guys, just bring the guys up who might be part of the future in 2021, 22. If not for anything except to give them some real at bats or plate appearances this year, because you're not going to give them. So a lot of these guys are going to play next year if there is minor league baseball with a full 1 year gap, and the development falls behind pretty fast. Like in base, like hitting is really really hard, right? Like I mean, so sometimes I wonder if that may be the route to go.
I would disagree only for this reason. These guys haven't played any games, and then you're going to throw them right into the fire facing big league pitching who now have their month to sort of get stretched out and get their stuff more
Yes, but
fine. And
wouldn't those plate appearances be more valuable to them than giving those 50 plate appearances to Joe Panic?
So if they were out of the play, I wouldn't say play before Joe Panic, yes, but in terms of making it, if you can make a deal that where it's a reasonable acquisition cost, dude, that would be the preferred approach I would take rather than bringing somebody up. I mean, if you did versus Joe Panic, maybe. I mean, you can't get much worse. But I would say my preferred take is trying to upgrade. I like Ron's idea of Jason Castro. I mean, okay, yeah, you can keep Jansen, you can send Reese McGuire down, although Jason Castro isn't great. He is serviceable, but if you could find someone, I'm just thinking about some of the names. I mean, primarily it's pitchers out there right now, but I'm looking at infielders that are available. If there's anybody that's maybe close to free agency for a month that you won't have to pay that much, I would go for it.
All right, so the series continues tomorrow. I think the Jays are playing Orioles at 1 p.m. EST tomorrow. Should be interesting.
Yeah, but I'm betting my house on that World Series win. What was it, 1.6% chance?
That is true. Let's look at your beloved Marlins. Where are they at? 0.2.
I like that. I'm putting money on each one of them. Maybe a few $1,000s to see where we can get with that.
Hey, it never hurts. I once read about this guy who was a Leicester City fan as a young kid, and him and his father would always bet $20 on Leicester winning the Premier League, and they did that for 40 years. And the first year in his life he didn't bet, they won the Premier League. So you never know.
I've told this story to so many people after I remember you telling me this before, and nobody believes it. And I couldn't remember who it was that actually told me about that. And now I'm actually gonna look it up to make sure if anybody doubts what I'm saying, that I can actually show them the proof of it. I knew it was somebody that told me. Now I realize it was you.
I read it somewhere. I think, and the guy moved to US, so he still had this habit of placing a bet on Leicester. And that was 1 year he didn't. I think it was one of the American newspapers, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll find it.
All right, so I think we've come to the end of our show. Any last words, guys?
Go Raptors and wear a mask, folks.
Awesome. So hope you enjoyed this episode. We should be back with another episode sometime next week. Please subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. We're on almost every platform that wherever you listen to your podcast, we should be available. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Box and One Pod. I think we've gone past Barry Bonds now. I think we have over 800 followers.
Yeah, so. We're over 800 followers now. So,
yeah, so Barry Bonds is in the background somewhere in a rearview mirror.
Yeah, we're leading MLB history in homers now. But just make sure you interact with us. We'd like to hear from you. If there's anything you want to hear us talk about, just let us know. Just like all of our stuff. And yeah, we love the support.
All right. Thank you for listening. Have yourself a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Are we finished?
Done.